Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video, I wanted to talk about taking care of a crap park. I think we've all been there, so let's get into it.
Now get ready, here we go.
Okay, so for today's video, this is what I wanted to talk about, right? Rides break down. Typically, maintenance comes and gets them back up and running, right? But what happens when a second ride breaks down? Or what happens when a third ride breaks down or a fourth ride breaks down? So today I wanted to talk about how mechanics make your day better trying to deal with multiple rides down around an absolute crap park. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen my Cedar Point video where I mentioned during that day I had so many rides down and so many things were broken. But I mentioned that day, I said, well, it's a hot park and the park is having to deal with a hot park. So one of the questions is like, well, how does a park deal with that hot park? How do they staff for a hot park? Like, what's different there? Well, the truth is a lot of parks don't staff for this or really project for this. Every day they plan for their A game to happen, all the rides to come up like they're supposed to, everything to work like it's supposed to, all the staff is supposed to show up like they are supposed to, and that is plan A. Everything just works flawlessly. The weather they'll deal with a little bit, but it's typically stuff like having to give staff more breaks to go out and get water, get into shaded areas or cool areas to keep their staff safe while they're out there operating those rides. Just like you or I, we'd have to stop riding rides more often to go get water, to go get food, so we can stay hydrated and keep our bodies fit so we can go back out and wait in the next line in all that heat. On the back end of things, the park staffs for a normal day of work. They don't really staff extra. The only time a park really staffs extra is when they have some sort of big event happening for the day. Like, let's say here in the US, it's the 4th of July weekend. Like, that is going to be a busy weekend, so they will staff heavier on that weekend, knowing there's going to be a lot more people in the park. Sure, you could do things on days when the park starts falling apart, like call people in from their days off, but a lot of the times you don't have that much staff to pick from on those days off. There's very minimal people on days off on general days. So on a day where it's going not great, right? It's not going good at all. You can ask for more help, but generally the way this happens is we ask for the shifts normally kind of butt up with each other with a very minimal overlap in them. Time-wise, so let's say the AM crew goes home at 2:30 and we schedule half an hour overlap. So the PM crew starts at 2 o'clock. So there's a half an hour overlap. Typically that's used for project turnover, things that are happening around the park just to switch from one shift to the next. So the quickest way to gain staffing is actually to elongate that turnover. So if the park is running like crap, I am going to go to my AM crew and I'm going to ask people and say, hey, is there anybody today that can possibly stay over an extra couple of hours and help keep the park running? The same matter of fact, I'm going to call my PM crew and say, hey, is there any way you can come in an hour or so early to help get the park up and running because we're not having a good day already right off the bat.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
But when the park is having issues, when the park is having trouble, realistically what it becomes a game of is deference. That's the game. That's what you have to play. You have only X amount of mechanics you have to deal with, and you typically have way more rides than mechanics. So you can't just go saturate mechanics at rides. We'll use Cedar Point. We'll say you have Millennium Force, Top Thrill 2, Siren's Curse, Magnum, Steel Vengeance. Like, there's 5 rides right there, okay? So when that park comes up and running, if 5 of those rides break down, that will take 5 mechanics right off the bat. A lot of times on rides, we do things that we make safety procedures to ensure that the guests are safe and the employees are safe. But one of the ways we build safety into rides is we make sure things are done further away from each other. So if we need a reset in a particular zone, we won't just say you go to the zone and press the reset button and that's it. Actually, no, you're going to go to the zone and you're going to press the reset button, but you need another mechanic at the panel to press and hold their reset button. If it's in certain areas where there's lots of people around, you might actually need 3 or 4 people to all hold reset buttons at the same time to clear whatever problem you're having in that area. So it starts looking more like 1 to 2 mechanics per ride call. So already you've taken it from 5 mechanics, and if you say 2 go out to each ride call, there is now 10 mechanics out taking care of 5 rides down. But on crappy days, it never quite starts that way. If we go back to the beginning and say, you know what, how does a crappy day start? Well, crappy days always start kind of back in the scheduling. So you're always running up against like a minimal crew. Let's say that the park needs, we'll make up a number. Say the park needs 10 people to open the park successfully. It's like, okay, what happens on this crap day? It's like, well, a lot of times the park needs 10 people to open up successfully. You scheduled for 11. 2 people called in sick. You're down for 9. Like, all right, we can't just easily go at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be and just call up people and say, hey, come in. A lot of times it doesn't work that way. People aren't near their phones. People won't pick up their phones. How many of you have ever done that where the boss called and you just didn't pick up your phone because you knew what that call was going to be? It was going to be, hey, can you come into work either early or just into work on your day off? So you just didn't pick up that phone. Same thing happens there. So now you're opening up a park with 9 people. So it starts there. And then what happens? Well, you start moving people around to rides that they don't necessarily do all the time. Now, this is one of the key shifts when it comes to maintenance having trouble opening up a park. This is one of the key things. Every mechanic has a list of stuff that they do in the background. They're like, okay, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to grease hitches on Mondays. And on Wednesdays, I grease the wheel carriers. Thursdays, I check the hitch clearances. It's like, okay, well, I called in sick on Thursday and the other crew had to come in and do the ride. So they're not used to doing my ride. Let's say they've shifted people around. It's already that minimum crew. So you have people that aren't used to working on that ride. They're trained on it. They're certified on it. Don't get me wrong. They know what they're doing. But they come into that ride and they're like, all right, let's go through this. And they start doing the PM coming up on stuff. And then they find out, you know what? It's like, man, when's the last time these hitches were greased? Well, they don't know my schedule if I'm keeping my own grease schedule. A lot of things the park doesn't like dictate exactly what day you grease hitches and stuff. They just say, so it's done in a 5-day period or 7-day period. It's typically fine. So I might be like, man, I feel those hitches are under greased. So I pull out the grease gun and start greasing hitches. You know, for a lot of hitches, it's a bare minimum of a lot of times 3 grease fittings per hitch, and then a lot of times you have to move the train back and forth to get all the fittings. So that's already eating up my inspection time. On top of that, as I start to grease the first hitch, grease starts popping out the front of the thing, which it's like, it really shouldn't do that. So I start checking the hitch play on each one of the coaches, and I find out that the hitches are actually all a little on the loose side. So now it's like, oh, if I need to correct this, then I need to call up my manager. And now I say, hey, I've got both trains out here at whatever ride. We'll use, I don't know what's a good ride to use. We'll use a boomerang, right? An older boomerang. I've got all the hitches on this boomerang that are loose, and I need to tighten them up. And the manager says, does that really have to be done today? Well, it depends. It's like, it's a longevity issue. So the tighter the hitches they are, the less they wear, the longer they last. By that, I mean the bushings and bearings and stuff like that inside those hitches. So I can say as a mechanic, it's like, well, they're loose, but they're still within tolerance. So it's like, although I don't really want to run them that way, by the book, they're still fine. So then the manager can just say, okay, just open the ride up like that. As long as they're within their tolerance, open the ride up, we're good. Okay, fine. You move to a different ride and you can say, okay, now I'm dealing with 2 trains. And I say, you know what, the hitches on train 1 are fine, but the hitches on train 2 are loose and I need to tighten them all up. Are they within tolerance? And I could say, no, they're not. All right, so what do we do there? It's like, well, your options are to open the ride up on one train, which is what a lot of parks decide to do. They say, okay, open the ride up first just on one train, and then later we'll get back to that second train and we'll tighten those hitches up and then put it back online so the park can have 2 trains. It's like, okay, that's a very common response. Just get the primary ride open and then we'll add units later on in the day. A lot of parks decide to do that. All right. So from there, we say we have people down, and now we have units starting to drop because people that aren't familiar with those inspections and aren't normally staying on top of those rides come in and start looking at things. And like now they start to find those gray areas that other mechanics have been letting the ride work in that gray area, but now mechanic A doesn't like what mechanic B is doing. So now you're having to constantly go to the shift manager or shift supervisor for each one and say like, all right, is this a gray area? Is this in the book? Is this out of the book? What does management know? Maybe there's been an issue like, yes, we've needed to tighten up all the wheel carriers on the main axle housings. We've been meaning to tighten those up. They're still fine. Management knows about it. It's like, but we're not going to do that today. All right, so they have those little situations that pile up. And most of these aren't big showstopper things. These are minor things typically that come up. One thing that will bite a ride in the butt every single time is the consumables worn down. Consumables, I mean like booster wheels. The gap between the booster wheels has to be this exact dimension. If they're opened up too wide, you have to start adjusting booster wheels. On the B&Ms, like there's a lot of times there's 4 booster wheels put together. They're actually linked together mechanically. If the first 2 have a really wide tolerance and the back 2 are narrow, it's like, well, the first 2 aren't doing anything. And then the only way to actually fix that is to not swap the wheels front to back. You actually have to take them off and then crisscross 2 wheels. So you take the front left and put it on the rear right, and vice versa. So you have the smaller wheels on the left-hand side, the larger wheels on the right-hand side. Now the wheels are at least straight with each other, so now you can adjust the gap in and out with those particular wheel sets. There's lots of little things like that. And brake brass. If brake brass is worn past a certain point, that's like game over right there. You have to shut the ride down and replace the brake brass. Now that brass type of instance right there, everyone should know about that. If I'm a mechanic, I'm taking care of a ride, I'm calling my supervisor up and I'm saying, hey, the brass is getting worn out here. We're going to need this replaced soon. And I'm calling them up every couple of days and saying it's still wearing. We're going to have to replace this soon. And they've got to keep telling me, yeah, we're not going to do it today. We're not going to do it today. We're not going to do it today. And then let's say in this perfect storm scenario, I come up to that ride and I go out there and now I'm a different mechanic. And now I'm not that primary. I come out there and I'm like, hey, brake brass is worn. I'm going to say it's worn past its limit. It's down into the rivet heads of the lining. It's like, okay. Let's see. On my brake here, this is an old style, like an L2 brake, like a Vacoma brake. I'm going to say right here, I'm not sure if you could see right inside there. See those little holes that are inside of there? Those little holes are where this brass lining is riveted to the steel backing. So once this brass lining wears down to those little holes and it becomes like a solid sheet of brass on the inside, I'm now wearing down the rivets that's actually holding this to this. So it's like that's a very key thing. And on bigger brakes and stuff like that, a lot of times they're actually hardware. And if it starts wearing into the hardware, it's like you're wearing down the fasteners. Everything needs to be replaced. So you might run into that scenario where, like, hey, I've got one ski, like I've got one set of skis out there. This would be a set of skis or one brake like this. So I've got one ski that's worn down too far, and I can't open this ride with that brake worn that much. So it's like, okay, right off the bat, boom, lost a ride. Now remember back, we had another ride where we're already running just one train. So shifting mechanics around inside the park starts to unravel the thread of basically deferred maintenance that's been happening all over the place. Now, when I say this, it's not necessarily a super bad thing, but what it is when you take care of a ride, you start saying, like, okay, I've got to do this tomorrow, I've got to do that tomorrow, and you start building a punch list of things. Now, good mechanics keep that punch list down to just minimal stuff, and those big ticket items like replacing brake brass and doing big things like that, they schedule with maybe off shift people that are working overnight or late at night, and they start figuring out when they can do that stuff to help that mechanic out. So then they will schedule that stuff and, like, okay, and then that ride never really runs into downtime, but the mechanic is doing all that scheduling work. If you got a mechanic that's not trying to schedule that work and they're just there to collect a paycheck, all they do is they go up, they do this, they do that, and they go on, they might not care. And then that mechanic actually won't really cause too much issues because they're doing it by the book. But the next time they go to a different ride where there might be something that's in that gray area, there's going to be no question about it. That ride's going to be down until that mechanic is satisfied, because at the end of the day, their name goes on the paperwork to say that, yes, that ride is safe for operation for that day. So it's their butt on the line. All right, so you have all this done, and a lot of times what happens at a lot of parks is they staff a lot of people overnight and first thing in the morning to get rides inspected and opened. It's like, okay, so now we have opened the park, and now we have one ride down for a brake brass issue. We have we have a train down on another ride that's waiting to get its hitches adjusted. Okay, so the AM crew starts to go home now. So you're asking people, hey, I need 2 guys to help stay over and build a brake ski, and we're going to go put it out on that ride. And you get 2 volunteers. It's like, okay. And then I've got another guy. It's like, I need another one that's going to volunteer and say, hey, I need you to go down to that other ride and tighten those hitches up and then finish the inspection on the train. That way we could put that on the track. It's like, okay, you get a volunteer to do that. Great. Your day shift crew comes in that's just going to be there, and that's all they're doing is they're just operating the park. That crew comes in and it's like, okay, then they start to get bombarded with minor little calls. A lot of times what a lot of mechanics get eaten up with is seatbelts at the rides. You know, you go to the rides and almost everything these days you sit down and there's a seatbelt on it. Well, think about how many trains, how many units are in the entire park with seatbelts. Think about how many seatbelts that park has in total. Each one of them almost is from a different manufacturer, and it's anchored into the ride a different way. The worst ones, honestly, are little tiny kids' rides. They're little tiny, cheap plastic belts that have little 3-prong clips on the end that break all the time. Those guys, and they put them in this fiberglass tubs that you can't just, I need to go from the top and unscrew it and then take a seatbelt out, put a new one in, and screw it back in there. No, a lot of the times it's in a fiberglass shell, and you have to get your hand on the back side behind it, which a lot of times is way up underneath on the back side of something. So you're inside of a tub with just your feet hanging out, your head stuck underneath the seat. You got one hand on top trying to hold a screwdriver, and the other one's up back behind the unit trying to hold the nut on the back side of the thing while you're doing that. And it's like, okay, changing seatbelts sometimes, even for the little tiny rides, can start building up. And then operations will call up and say, hey, can you also come to this ride because now we're hearing an unusual noise. It's like, well, Why is it having unusual noise? It's like you go out to the ride and it's like, oh, well, it just sounds like it's a little dry. Well, today happens to be one of those days where it's really hot outside. It's like, okay, so you can try to put some oil on it and like get it oiled back up so it starts working correctly again. All right. Then rides, when they're hot, start to throw miscellaneous faults because electronics like to be maintained right about 65 degrees. That's where they like to be. So once they start getting hotter, they start having all sorts of issues because everything is just works off of resistance, right? Every single thing out there, proximity sensors especially, they work off resistance. So when those values swing too far, you might start getting erroneous prox signals. Either the train passed by and it didn't see it, or it just suddenly turned on in the middle of it. And I've literally been out to calls where the prox was too hot. We literally took the proximity sensor off and let it cool down and swapped it with another one and turned it back on, and like it was fine. So you have your minimal crews out there. They're working on getting seatbelts and little odds and ends and unusual noise here and a minor fault on a ride there. And then you have, let's use Cedar Point, and then you have Top Thrill 2 go down. It's like, all right, where are my mechanics? I got a mechanic working on brake brass. I got 2 on brake brass. I got 1 on hitches, and I've got 3 out, or maybe let's say 4 out doing miscellaneous calls around the park. It's like, okay, so 2 guys that were out doing miscellaneous calls, I'm pulling them off of those rides. Now, the rides that they're working on could probably still operate. They just are down seats. Instead of having 10 seats on that ride, they might now have 9 available, or maybe 8 if it's a pair of seats. So it's like, okay, I'm going to pull 2 guys off, and I say, hey, you 2, you guys got to go to Top Thrill 2 because that thing is down. You need to get that back up and running. It's like, okay, they're off. They go over there. Next one, a little bit later, Siren's Curse goes down. It's got a problem. It's like, ooh, that's our new ride this year. We've got to get that thing back up and running. Other 2 guys, I need you guys to go over to Siren's Curse right now. It's like, I've got this one seat torn apart. If you pull me away right now on this ride is down too. Okay, let's see. What's the thing at Siren's Curse? It's a simple fault. Something with the lift hill, let's just say. We've seen it a bunch before. Okay, 1 guy, go over there. You finish working on that ride that you're on right now. You go over to Siren's Curse. I've got 2 at Top Thrill. I've got 2 on the break over there. I've got 1 guy on hitches over there. It's like, okay, cool. Go for it. Next up, Corkscrew calls up and says, hey, a road wheel just went down on this train. We've got a broken road wheel. The surface is delaminated off of it. So it's like, okay, the urethane surface. Urethane's come off of it. It's now aluminum on steel. So it's like, what do you do? It's like, all right, the guy that was working on the kiddie ride that was just trying to get back up and running, let's say it's a kid's coaster, who's trying to get that seat back up and running, call him up. Hey, where are you with that? He says, I'm still knee deep in the middle of it. It's not going good. It's like, all right. I need you to go over to Corkscrew and change a road wheel out. It's like, okay, do you want me to sideline the train or do you want me to just keep it on the track and change it out on the track? And I'm going to say, use your best judgment call when you're there. It's like, okay, but let me know either way. That way I just know. All right, fine. So he stops. Now I've got Top Thrill 2 is still down. Corkscrew's down. Siren's Curse is down. I got a kiddie ride down. I've got a roller coaster with brake brass that's still down. And I've got a coaster that should have 2 trains on it, but it only has 1 train because the hitches are too loose on the other one. It's like, okay. All right. Manageable, but still, I can handle that. And then the next call comes in. It's Mechanic B, who's over at Siren's Curse, and says, hey, you know what? I actually need to do a lift reset on the 3rd position. It's like, okay, what do you need? I need 2 more mechanics. Oh, man, you need 1 at the panel, you need 1 at the base of the lift, and you need 1 at the top of the lift in order to reset it. Okay. The 2 guys that are working on that brake brass, I'm like, hey, sorry guys, I got to pull you off. I need you to go over to Siren's Curse. And they're like, we can't stay much longer. We've been staying over our shift. We can't stay much longer. So if you pull us off and do that, honestly, when we're done with Siren's Curse, we're going to be going home. Look at the time and say, yeah, you've already been over 2.5 hours. I don't want you here too much longer, honestly, because that burns people out. All right. Go do Siren's Curse with them. And then when the park clears up again, we'll get back on that brake brass. All right, cool. So those two guys get up and go. Mechanic C calls me up and says, hey, I have the hitches ready on this train. Can I put this train back on the track? Yep, I can. Yep, go for it. Put that train back on the track. Okay, so now that roller coaster gets called down. That roller coaster goes down now because we're putting a train back on the track. And typically to do this, you have to stop operation because now what you need to do is a block check once two vehicles come onto the track. Most parks will check the blocks with one vehicle on the track to start with, but I mean, personally, anytime I add another one, I do another block check all over again. That way I'm dealing with physical vehicles. Bumping is not a good thing. So we're going to redo a block check on the ride when we add another unit to it. Personally, I can't speak for every park, obviously. So now that ride goes down. That's still down. That ride goes down. That wasn't down because that before he was just working on that hitch, those hitches in the maintenance bay. So now that ride's down. The one with the worn brass is down. Siren's Curse is down. Top Thrill 2 is down. Right? Am I missing one in there? Oh yeah, the kiddie coaster. The kiddie coaster is down because we took it partially apart to change a seatbelt, and now that's not working. So that ride goes down. It's like, okay, as we're going back up, comes back and says, hey, guess what? Top Thrill 2 is back up and running. It's like, cool, awesome, thank you so much, got it. Typically at a crap park, as soon as Top Thrill 2 comes up and running, we're going to say Millennium Force goes down. All right. Can you two guys go to Millennium Force? And they're like, yeah, one can. Why? Because the other one is going to stay at Top Thrill 2 and continue to monitor it because it was a funky proc signal and we weren't sure why. So we're just going to watch it run with people on it to see if we can see something different around that area. It's like, okay, one guy goes to Millennium Force. He goes out there. Got the other guy watching at Top Thrill 2. Maybe that guy, when he's done, can go do the kiddie roller coaster. It's like, cool. All right, so we're going up along there. Then the guy at Corkscrew calls up and says, hey, I need help with a block check. All right, so I call up the first mechanic at Top Thrill 2. I'm like, everything looking okay? Yeah, it looks okay. Great, run over to Corkscrew and help him with a block check. Cool, so he runs over to Corkscrew. Great, good, glad that's happening. Millennium Force is slowly getting resolved. But he's calling up and saying that's a heat issue too. He's got control room doors open. He's got air blowing through there. He's like, everything is just too hot. We got faults in the control cabinet that won't reset. But nothing's actually tripped. Nothing's wrong. All right. That's what heat does to rides. Heat does things to rides that it tells you something is wrong when nothing is actually wrong. It's all resistive components. That's it. When they get too hot, the resistance is wrong. It doesn't work right? Okay, so he's out there doing that. I got the Corkscrew guys out there. They're trying to get Corkscrew back up and running. Top Thrill 2 just went down again. Okay, what fault is it now? Oh, it's the same exact fault it was before. All right, mechanic who just went to Corkscrew, can you go back and reset Top Thrill 2? I can. I'm going to need 2 people. Okay, well, where am I going to get 2 people from? See, Siren's Curse is still down, Millennium Force is down, Corkscrew is down, the kiddie coaster is down, we still got the one ride down that has the brass that's worn on it. Alright, let's see, let me figure out where to get that second person from. Hold on a second. Alright, you know what? I'm going to go out to Millennium Force since he just started that call. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to send that mechanic back to Top Thrill 2. So the two original mechanics that worked with the problem are now back on the same exact problem. It's like, okay, cool. I am on my way to Millennium Force now. Those two guys are on their way out there. Great. Siren's Curse, back up and running. Awesome. I have now lost two guys because they're going home, but I have the one guy free. Steel Vengeance goes down. It's got an ASI module not reading on the train. It's like, all right, go out to Steel Vengeance, figure that out, and then let me know what's going on there. I'm on my way to Millennium Force now. Raptor just went down. It's stuck with people on the lift hill. It's like, geez. I have made my phone calls already. There was 3 mechanics off this evening, and I called all 3 of them, asked any of them if they can come in. And so far, none of them have responded. I have already called operations and I've said, hey, we are having issues with getting the equipment working. We are also a little short on our staffing. Is there anything you guys can do to help out? And they said, wait, we can take care of some of the little nuisance calls that might come up. That's nothing minor. We can go to those for you guys and help you out. It's like, ooh, thank you so much. You don't know how much that cooperation means to the maintenance department when it happens, right? So it's like, okay, now I am going to actually not going to go to Millennium Force. Now I'm going to change direction and I am going to Raptor because now people are stuck on the lift hill. I'm calling up one of the mechanics from Top Thrill 2 and I'm like, hey, I need help out of Raptor. Head over there because people are on the lift hill and I need help getting them off.
That's what she said.
And they said, okay, but without 2 people here, we can't get Top Thrill 2 back up and running because we needed 2 people to do this adjustment. It's like, okay, fine, leave Top Thrill 2 down. Someone come with me to get Raptor off the lift hill. It's like, all right, so they're on their way out there with me. The first mechanic calls up and says, hey, I need help out at Steel Vengeance. Why do you need help out at Steel Vengeance? Because this ASI monitor in the train went bad and it's locked up the train. It's like, why do you need help now? It's like, because I still have another train sitting out and the brakes loaded. Oh, so that one's stuck with people on it. It's like, yep, that one's stuck with people on it too. It's like, can you just manual override and get that train out of the station? The only way to do it is to run the ride in manual. Our procedures say do not run the ride in manual with people on it. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. We're going to split up now. Corkscrew's back up and running. They just called it. So it's like, great. You go over to Steel Vengeance now. Help him out. It's like, cool. But I'm running past my time and I really need to leave soon. I've got a previous engagement that I said, I had this evening, so I've got to leave. It's like, okay, just if you can, just go help him out and get at least unstuck with people. It's like, all right. So working on Raptor, Top Thrill 2 is down, Millennium Force is down, Steel Vengeance is down, Corkscrew luckily is back up and running, Kids Coaster is down. All right, it's a hot day, blistering hot outside. All sorts of nuisance calls for noises and squeaks are coming through the radio in the meantime. Operations is doing their best. Then they called up the water ride, the Big Rapids ride. It's like, what happened? We lost the turntable drive. It's like, oh no. It's like, yep. All right, so the drive just stopped working? Yeah, it means everything stopped working. Which means we can't get any of the rafts up there. That means, yeah, we've got 40 people stuck in the ride right now. Okay. Like, Vengeance, how long until you guys are unloaded? It's going to be about another 10 minutes. It's like, all right, we're about 15 minutes away here on Raptor. Who else do I have? Let's see, Raptor there. Geez, like that is it. All right. someone from operations help out the guys at Steel Vengeance, and then I will have to pull off of Raptor. Someone from operations is going to have to step in here. But you know what? We're still 10 minutes away from that point. So I'm going to ask operations to do whatever they can, if they can maybe start the evacuation process on the Rapids ride, and then we will be there soon. All of this, step back, right? All of this is just to show you this is what happens when you deal with crap parks. It's typically a mixture of things. It's a little bit of staffing, but it's not all staffing. It's just a little bit of unknown. Some of the stuff came up, and maybe some of these things on these rides that built up were because you didn't have great staffing leading up to that day. And you know, maybe there was like, oh, we've been down a person who's been on vacation. We've had 2 guys on vacation, and we've been making it work, but just slowly. And then that one thing caught up with us on that ride. So in this particular scenario, this would take place over like a couple of hours of time. And during that time, you'd walk around the park and be like, well, that's not open. That's not open. That's not open. That's not open as well. And you keep walking around. And what you don't see as a guest is you don't see that. You say, well, this ride's not open. Okay, so I walk away from that ride. And you don't see that 15 minutes later, that ride opens up and it goes back into operation. All you know is that it took you about an hour and 25 minutes to make your way back around that park. And when you got to that ride again, maybe it was down again. And it was like, oh, it's still not open. Or maybe it's running, but the one next to it is now down. You don't see a lot of that stuff as a guest. So there's a lot of timetables that just happen to line up. There's been days where we've had hot, crappy days like that, and then my particular scenario, operations played ball, and they're like, all right, we're going to help you out. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. A lot of times what happens on hot, sticky, nasty, sweaty days is that operations doesn't want to play well either. And they're not trying to be, gripey or anything like that. They're not trying to purposely sabotage the park. But their operators are also standing out there in that heat, operating that ride. It's not the most comfortable conditions for them. So you know what? There's been plenty of times, I've seen this all over, all sorts of parks, where those operators are like, you know what? I hear a little squeak. Where it might be something on a ride where they would just ignore it a lot of times, and they're just like, it's just a little squeak. That happens from time to time. Operators on a hot, nasty day might be like, you know what? I want time now. I want some time to go take a break. I want to go inside and sit down. I want to go do something else. So they call that ride down, and it's like, unusual noise. I don't know what this noise is, but, and you can't fault them for it. They'll say, oh, it's not safe to operate. Until maintenance gets there and figures out where the noise is and what it's going on. It's like, well, it might not be safe to operate. You don't know. You can't play that card. So you just have to go, okay. So a lot of times, tons of rides on hot days go down just because they're like, operations is just done working outside on it. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, they're paid to be outside all day. It's like, yeah, it still doesn't mean that you're going to do it day in and day out and it's going to be awesome. Like, you're still going to want that break, right? Lots of people work in office spaces all day. It's like they take extra breaks too. It's like they're sitting in an air-conditioned, lighted building, and all they have to do is work on their computer. But they'll still take extra breaks and get up and go get more coffee. They'll go get a snack. They'll go do something like that because they want to. It's just the little ins and outs of things that people do to take a mental break from whatever they're working on. So during this time also is maintenance kind of knows what they're working on, and they have a time frame of what it is. So they're going to go there and they're going to say, hey, I'm working on this, and they know it takes X amount of time. They're going to tell their boss how much time they're projected to take on it, but those projections of times are almost always wrong. Just the way it is. I've done it multiple times. I've gone up there. It's been a simple fault, right? It's been a simple like, oh, it's an air gates fault. Stay off the air gates, please. It's an air gates fault. So I just go up there. It's like, no problem. You just go in, switch over, hit the reset button, switch it back, start the ride up. No big deal. Like, boss is like, how long is it going to be? It's like, including time to walk out to the ride. I'm like, give me 10 minutes. I'll have that ride back up and running. Cool. I go out to the ride. 10 minutes passes by. 15 minutes passes by. 20 minutes pass by. Call me up. Ryan, what's going on at that ride? You said it was a simple air gate's fault. What's going on? I know it won't clear for some reason. How do you not clear an air gate's fault? Like, just switch it into manual mode, reset, and go back. It's like, I know how to reset a fault. Like, but it's not clearing. It's like, okay. It's like, well, let me call you back in 5 minutes. It's like, I go down, I go underneath the station, I give my manager a call back, and I said, I found out why I can't clear the air gate's fault. It's like, why is that? Because the flag that the proximity sensor is reading at the end of the air gates, the flag is broken. It is no longer attached. So therefore, it always thinks the gates are open, even though they are closed. It's like, oh, what do we do? It's like, you need to get a big ass ladder out here. You need to get the welder out here. And we got to clear this area to bring the welder into this area so we can get up there and weld the frigging flag back onto the thing. It's like, oh, that means, yeah, it's going to be some extended downtime, probably at least another half hour, 45 minutes. And unfortunately for the people in the queue line, I need the queue line 100% cleared because we're going to be welding and no one could be around while we're welding. See how that call just went from simple 5 minute, we do it all the time, no problem, to now that was almost an hour of time, start to finish, assuming get into that ride and get the welder going on and all the components were there necessary to fix it. These are the joys of taking care of an absolute crap running park for the day. And yeah, it's kind of true, my scenario. Anytime like rides keep backing up and you get one ride on top of another ride that's down on top of another ride that's down on top of another, when you are absolute stressed beyond anything and you can't take any more, almost religiously, when you're to that point and you just can't take any more on a hot day and you're about to burst at the seams, the water rides break down. That seems to be the icing on the cake with crap parks, is just the water rides will break down. They'll chew up a conveyor. These aren't simple resets either. When water rides break down, they break stuff. They snap boards, they break conveyor chains, they break belts, they do all sorts of nasty things. So never fails, right? You've been at a park when it's really hot and you go by the log flume or the rapids ride or the shoot the chutes or something like that, and that thing's down in the middle of the day sometimes, huh? Thing's broken down? Yep. That was a crap park day, and that ride was just the icing on the cake that decided to break the camel's back. Ugh. So much stress wrapped up in these things. And then a lot of times, mechanics have a hard time recovering from it as well. So this may go on for a long time into the evening hours, and the park might not recover. You might average 5 rides down for the rest of the night. As soon as one comes up and running, another one drops off. So you might average 5 rides down, and the next morning you might be turning over big downtime stuff. That water ride that broke the conveyor chain, that thing's not up and running. It's still broken out there. That needs an entire crew by itself. Night shift manager was on the phone with the day shift manager trying to get extra people in to help. I mean, it could be one of those things if you're in a park that's in an area where there's a lot of other parks around, hopefully you call from another park and get some extra help out there. There's a good chance you won't, though. But then that's all that load is turned over to the next day. And those guys come back in the next morning, and they're like, oh, they start off with, did they get those brake skis finished up and back on that one ride? And it's like, no. In fact, they are still sitting in the back of the shop, and they look exactly like you guys left them at 5 o'clock yesterday. They look exactly the same. So it's like, well, we know we still have that project. And it's like, but we got the corkscrew up and running. We think we got Top Thrill 2 figured out. We got Raptor figured out. We got Millennium Force figured out. We got Steel Vengeance figured out. We got all that stuff. Cool. So what did we do? We brought 3 people in today because the water ride just tore itself apart last night. That ride's probably going to be down all day because that's going to be a crap fix right there. Oh, well, that sucks. And guess what? 2 more people called in sick today because all the bull crap that happened yesterday, they didn't want to go through it again. So they're just like, nope, 2 people called in sick. You might actually, because of the heat, 2 people calling in sick, you might actually be ready to repeat that last day all over again. And it's going to suck. I promise. And then on top of that, you get people on the other side that are just doing nothing but the ride's down. Ride's been down all day. These rides have been down all day. Those rides have been down all day. It's one of the reasons why when I go to an amusement park, I say I want to ride this, 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 and that. And I always say, if they're open, I want to ride those. Because I know, more so than most people, that those rides might not be open. I don't know. Maybe that was the day I really wanted to ride that Rapids ride, and I showed up, and I say, if it's open, because there's a good chance it might not be open. And when you take care of a crap park, chances are it's not just that one day or that one afternoon. It has lingering effects for sometimes the next week. It has an after effect. It's got an aftershock that basically goes through the entire park. And it's one of the other ways a park can turn crappy is from the operations point of view. Like, I've been focused on maintenance because that's what I did. So I've been focused on the maintenance point of view, saying like this can happen, but the exact same effect happens with operations. The same exact effect happens with operations. Lack of staffing turns into moving operators around that are certified on rides, but they're not at that ride all that time. Because they're not at that ride all the time, they hear lots of unusual noises, unusual sounds, because they're not used to it. And they call the rides down more often. And those operators will call the rides down more often, and they'll get maintenance out more often. And if maintenance is already struggling on top of that, one of the times that this happens is during this time of year when a lot of schools go back into their normal schedule, because a lot of parks use school-aged kids to operate rides. Not all the parks, but a lot of them do. So what you have is you'll have these younger operators that have been operating the ride for most of the off-season, or most of the summer season, I'm sorry. They'll have those operators will now be gone during the week. And you'll bring in these other operators that might have been working on there, but they might have not been, and now they start filling in for different areas. And now they get on there and they're like, oh, they don't know the ins and outs of the rides. Some things, rides do really weird things when you get new operators in because they don't know those quirks.
I want to go fast.
Operators be dispatching a ride and suddenly the ride faults out. Don't know why. Maintenance comes up and resets it, and the ride dispatch it again, and the ride faults out again. And they'll keep doing this throughout the day. And then they'll finally get an experienced operator on that particular ride comes back in the evening time. And they're like, hey, how's it been running today? And they're like, it's been running like crap. It keeps faulting out with this one particular fault, like every 15 minutes. It's like, oh, are you pushing both buttons down all the way? They're like, no, it's nothing like that. It has something to do with like it says something like break one failed high or something like that. It's some weird fault. Maintenance comes out and resets it. They're like, yeah, if you dispatch and hold both buttons, and right as the train is 2 coaches out of the station, and there, if you take your hand off the left button and put it back on, you'll get that fault every time. It's like, oh, you will? It's like, yeah, you will. We just know to hold the buttons down all the way the entire time. And then the operator starts thinking, I'm like, well, I was kind of like, every time that happened, I was dispatching, and then I kind of like stretched my shoulders out a little bit, and then the ride faulted. It's like, oh, they were doing that. Yeah. New ride operators get called down, those squeaks. Oh, it's making the squeaking sound. Older ride operators be like, yeah, when it does this and this, and like, yeah, right there. It's like, yeah, it does that. Maintenance has checked it out many times. Nothing's wrong with it. It's like, oh, okay. Unnecessary downtime, but downtime necessary for safety because we got to make sure stuff is safe every day. All right, I've been rambling on for so long. I could probably go longer on this subject, but I feel like no one's watching this video anymore. For those of you that are still here, if you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I try to make a new video each week and release it out there, and it's typically about how rides work. Sometimes during the seasons I get park visit videos, but most of the time I try to do them how rides work and components of rides work and that sort of stuff. If you're new to the channel, check out my backlog of videos. I got plenty of them. I try to make some basic playlists where there's everything on there. And just take a look around. Leave a comment. So much stuff happens in my comments down there. I get so many interesting stories that come from people. So definitely this video is going to produce probably a ton of stories in the comments. So if this was an interesting video for you, check out the comments. I'm sure there's plenty of reading material down there after the video's been up and running for a bit. All right. If you want to contact me, you can contact me. Comments down below, or Ryan the Ride Mechanic at yahoo.com. And as always, to prevent crappy parks from getting crappier, is that a word? Crappier? Might be. I think so. Anyways, you need to stay off the air gates. Bye.